Welcome to Calming Bedtime Journeys channel. Tonight we follow a quiet winding road through the medieval world where travellers move through cold landscapes without the comfort of shelter and somehow still made it through the night. How did they endure freezing winds, damp earth and endless darkness with nothing but simple tools and stubborn determination? What did it truly feel like to lie beneath an open sky knowing warmth was never guaranteed? So before you settle into the story, take a second to like the video and hit subscribe. And if you feel like sharing, let me know where you are in the world right now and what time it is where you're listening from. Now dim the lights. You step onto the road as the last traces of daylight begin to fade. The air feels sharper, already brushing lightly against your face with a quiet warning. The ground beneath your feet is firm, uneven, carrying the memory of countless travellers who passed before you. There are no glowing windows ahead, no welcoming doorways, only the long stretch of open path and the steady rhythm of your breath. You pull your cloak closer without thinking. The fabric is rough, slightly stiff, and it smells faintly of smoke and damp wool. It is not comfortable in the way modern clothing might be, but it holds something far more important. It holds warmth. Even now you can feel a thin layer of heat gathering beneath it, trapped close to your body as the outside air continues to cool. A widely accepted understanding of medieval travel is that most people moved on foot, often covering long distances between scattered settlements. Roads were not always clearly defined, and inns were rare outside of busier trade routes. This meant that many travellers, especially poorer ones, had no choice but to rely on themselves when night arrived. You begin to understand that this journey is not unusual, it is simply how things were. The light continues to fade slowly. A faint sound reaches you, wind moving through distant trees. It carries with it the dry scent of leaves and something colder beneath something that feels almost metallic in its sharpness. You pause for a moment, listening, letting your senses stretch outward into the growing dark. There is no urgency in your movement. Only awareness. You take another step, then another. Your body begins to settle into a rhythm, each footfall steady, predictable, almost comforting. Movement, you realize, is not just a way forward. It is a way to stay warm. As long as you keep walking, your muscles continue to work, generating heat that spreads slowly through your limbs. It is not dramatic. It is subtle, but it matters quite a lot. Some historians suggest that medieval travellers instinctively understood this balance between rest and motion, even if they did not describe it in scientific terms. Walking too fast could exhaust you. Stopping too long could chill you. The key was somewhere in between, a quiet pace that sustained both energy and warmth over time. You adjust your breathing. The air feels colder as it moves into your lungs, but your body adapts quickly. Each breath becomes part of the rhythm, part of the steady process of staying alive in an environment that offers little comfort. Your hands tucked beneath your cloak begin to lose their initial warmth, and you shift them slightly, pressing them closer to your sides. A small detail, but important. You glance down at the road, though it is becoming harder to see. The surface is uneven, scattered with small stones and patches of hardened earth. In some places it dips slightly, holding traces of moisture that reflect the faint remaining light. You step carefully, aware that a misstep could mean more than a simple stumble. Injury here would not be easily managed. There is a quiet awareness that follows you. Not fear exactly, something calmer, more focused. A lesser-known detail often noted by researchers is that many travellers carried very few possessions, choosing instead to rely on knowledge of the land and simple adaptable tools. This might include a basic cloak, a small knife, perhaps a pouch of food. Heavy loads would slow you down, and in cold conditions, slowing down could become dangerous. You feel the weight of what you carry. It is not much, and that is intentional. The sky above deepens into a darker shade, the first stars beginning to appear in scattered points of light. They do not brighten the path in any meaningful way, but they offer something else, a sense of continuity. A reminder that others have walked beneath this same sky, facing the same quiet challenges. You continue forward. The temperature drops further. You notice it not as a sudden change, but as a gradual shift in how your body responds. Your shoulders tighten slightly. Your steps become a little more deliberate. The warmth beneath your cloak remains, but it feels more fragile now, something that must be maintained rather than assumed. You adjust your pace again. There is a subtle instinct guiding you, not learned in words but in sensation. When to move, when to pause, when to pull your cloak tighter, when to relax your grip. These small decisions form a quiet pattern, one that keeps you balanced between comfort and exposure. Historians continue to debate how much of this knowledge was formally taught versus learned through experience. Some believe that younger travellers picked up these habits simply by accompanying others observing without instruction. Others suggest that certain techniques were passed down more deliberately, especially in communities where travel was common. You consider this as you walk. It feels like something that lives in the body rather than the mind. A faint rustling sound draws your attention to the side of the road. You pause again, listening carefully. It could be an animal, or simply the wind shifting through low brush. Either way, you remain still for a moment, allowing the environment to settle around you before continuing. Stillness has its place, but not for too long. You resume your movement, feeling the return of warmth as your muscles engage once more. Your feet press into the ground with quiet consistency, each step reinforcing the rhythm you have established. The road stretches ahead unseen but understood. You are not alone in this experience, even if no one is beside you. There is a curious detail sometimes mentioned in accounts of medieval journeys, where travellers spoke of a kind of calm that emerged after hours on the road. Not comfort exactly, but a steady acceptance of the conditions. A mental quiet that allowed them to focus on simple immediate needs rather than distant worries. You begin to feel that now. The cold is still present. The darkness continues to deepen, but your awareness narrows gently, focusing on the next step, the next breath, the next small adjustment that keeps you moving forward. It becomes enough. For now, you pull your cloak closer once more, feeling its rough texture press against your skin. The faint smell of smoke lingers, a reminder of past fires, past moments of warmth that have settled into the fabric itself. It is not just clothing, it is memory and protection. The road continues, quiet, unchanging, and you walk on. You continue along the road, your body now settled into a quiet rhythm that feels almost natural. The darkness has fully arrived, wrapping the landscape in a soft, indistinct shadow where shapes blur and edges dissolve. The air feels colder against your face, but beneath your cloak a steady warmth remains, held close through layers that do more than simply cover your skin. You begin to notice those layers more clearly. Beneath the outer cloak, your tunic rests close to your body, its fabric coarse but effective. Under that, another layer, thinner, worn smooth with time and use. Each piece feels simple on its own, but together they create something more reliable. A barrier that slows the cold, giving your body time to respond. It is not about thickness alone, it is about trapping air. A commonly understood principle even in medieval times was that multiple layers of clothing kept a person warmer than a single heavy garment. Though they did not describe it in scientific terms, people recognized that air held between layers could act as insulation, reducing the loss of body heat. Wool in particular was valued for this reason, as it retained warmth even when slightly damp. You adjust your cloak again, pulling it tighter across your chest. The fabric folds over itself, creating small pockets where warmth gathers. Your hands move beneath it, pressing briefly against your sides, and you feel the difference immediately. A small contained heat, fragile but real. It is enough to matter. The road beneath your feet has changed slightly. The ground feels firmer now, less uneven, as if it has been worn down by repeated use. Your steps fall more easily, each one landing with a quiet certainty that reduces the effort of walking. Even this small shift conserves energy, allowing your body to focus on maintaining warmth. You listen as you walk. The sounds of the night have deepened. The wind moves more steadily now, brushing across the land with a low, continuous tone. Occasionally it catches the edge of your cloak, lifting it slightly before letting it fall back into place. The fabric rustles softly, a constant companion to your movement. There is a faint scent in the air, cold earth, damp grass, a distant trace of wood smoke carried from somewhere far beyond your sight. It reminds you that others are out there, perhaps closer to shelter, perhaps gathered around fires that burn brighter than anything you currently have. You keep walking, your shoulders relax slightly as your body adapts to the temperature. The initial shock of the cold has passed, replaced by a steady awareness that no longer demands your full attention. Instead, you begin to notice smaller details, the way your breath forms faint clouds in the air, the way your fingers shift occasionally to maintain feeling. A small movement, repeated often. Some historical accounts suggest that travellers would deliberately adjust their clothing throughout a journey, not only to stay warm but to avoid overheating during exertion. Sweat, once it cooled, could become dangerous, increasing the risk of chilling the body. Managing layers was not just about warmth, it was about balance. You consider this as you loosen the edge of your cloak slightly, allowing a small amount of cooler air to circulate. The change is subtle, but it prevents the build-up of excess heat beneath the fabric. Your body responds almost immediately, settling into a more comfortable state. There is a quiet skill in this, not obvious, but essential. A lesser-known detail often discussed among historians is the importance of linen undergarments during this period. While wool provided insulation, linen helped wick moisture away from the skin, keeping the body drier and therefore warmer over time. This combination, though simple, formed the foundation of practical clothing for many travellers. You feel the effect of it now. The inner layer remains relatively dry despite the steady movement of your body. It prevents the dampness that could otherwise settle against your skin, preserving the warmth you have worked to maintain. Each layer has its purpose, even if it seems unremarkable at first glance. You shift your arms slightly. The cloak settles differently across your shoulders, redistributing its weight. It is not a perfect fit, but it does not need to be. Its function is clear and it performs it well enough. You tuck one side more securely, creating a tighter seal against the wind that continues to move across the open land. The wind feels sharper now. You notice how it finds small openings, slipping through gaps in your clothing, brushing briefly against your skin before disappearing. Each time it happens, your body reacts, adjusting instinctively, closing those gaps, preserving the warmth within. You learn quickly, or perhaps you already know. So, scholars still question how widespread certain clothing practices were across different regions and social classes. While wealthier individuals had access to finer materials and tailored garments, many ordinary travellers relied on whatever they could obtain or create themselves. This meant that effectiveness often depended on experience rather than design. You imagine that? Utter difference. The same road, the same cold, but not the same protection. You pull your cloak tighter once more, feeling its rough edge press against your chin. The fabric smells faintly of lanolin, a natural scent from the wool that has not been fully removed. It is not unpleasant. In fact, it feels grounding, a reminder of the material's origin and its purpose. You continue forward. Your steps remain steady, your breathing even. The layers around you hold their warmth, creating a small personal space that moves with you through the larger cold. It is not a complete barrier, but it does not need to be. It only needs to be enough. You pause briefly, shifting your weight from one foot to the other. The ground feels cool even through your footwear, but not unbearably so. You flex your toes slightly, encouraging movement, maintaining circulation. It is another small habit, one that keeps your body engaged. Stillness can wait. For now you move. There is a quiet comfort in understanding how these layers work together. How simple materials arranged with care can protect against an environment that offers no mercy. It is not luxury, it is not ease, it is survival. And you carry it with you step by step, wrapped in cloth that holds not just warmth but knowledge passed silently through generations. You walk on. You continue forward in your step, steady, your breathing. Calm, the rhythm of movement now fully settled into your body. The road stretches ahead in quiet darkness, and though you cannot see far, your awareness has sharpened in other ways. You feel the ground more clearly. You sense the air before it shifts. You notice how your body responds to each small change in temperature. Movement keeps you warm. That truth becomes clearer with every step you take. Your legs carry you forward, muscles working in a slow, consistent pattern that generates heat deep within your body. It spreads, gradually reaching your core first, then moving outward, sustaining the fragile warmth beneath your layered clothing. You do not rush. A measured pace matters. If you move too quickly, your breathing becomes uneven, and heat builds too fast beneath your layers. If you slow too much, the cold begins to press inward again, reclaiming what you have built. So you find the middle path, a quiet balance between effort and ease. This was widely recognized in medieval travel, even if it was never written as a rule. People learned through experience that steady walking was essential during cold journeys. Caravans, pilgrims, and messengers alike understood that endurance mattered more than speed, especially when warmth depended on continued motion. You adjust your stride slightly. The ground beneath your feet changes again, becoming softer in places, holding traces of moisture that have not yet frozen. Your boots press into the earth with a muted sound, each step releasing a faint scent of damp soil. It rises briefly, then disappears into the colder air above. You listen. The night feels deeper now. The wind has softened, replaced by a stillness that carries its own weight. In this quiet, even the smallest sounds stand out. The brush of fabric against fabric. The subtle shift of your foot against the ground. The steady rhythm of your own breathing. You keep going. Your hands move beneath your cloak, rubbing lightly against your arms to encourage warmth. The friction creates a brief surge of heat, small but noticeable. You repeat the motion once, then again, not out of urgency, but as part of a growing awareness of how your body can support itself. A simple action, repeated often. Some historians point out that travelers frequently relied on these small physical habits to maintain circulation. Flexing fingers, shifting weight, adjusting posture. These were not dramatic gestures, but they helped prevent stiffness and kept the body responsive to the cold environment. You straighten slightly. Your shoulders roll back, opening your chest, allowing your breath to move more freely. The air still feels cold as it enters your lungs, but it no longer startles you. Instead, it becomes part of the rhythm, part of the steady exchange that keeps you moving forward. There is a faint glow ahead, not bright, not steady, but enough to catch your attention. You slow your pace just slightly, watching as the glow flickers and veers, as if hidden behind uneven ground or distant trees. It could be another traveller, or a small fire left behind, or simply a trick of light against the dark. You do not rely on it. You continue at your own pace. A curious detail sometimes mentioned in medieval accounts is that travellers often misjudged distance at night, especially in cold conditions. Light sources could appear closer than they truly were, leading to unnecessary detours or exhaustion. Experience taught them to trust their rhythm more than distant signals. You follow that instinct now. Your body feels warmer than before, not because the air has changed, but because you have adapted to it. Your muscles remain active, your circulation steady, your breathing controlled. The warmth is not strong, but it is consistent. And consistency matters. You shift your arms again, letting the cloak settle differently around you. The fabric moves with a soft sound brushing against itself as it falls back into place. It holds the warmth you have created, preserving it as you move through the cold. You notice your feet. They have grown slightly numb at the edges, not entirely without feeling, but less sensitive than before. You respond without hesitation, adjusting your stride, pressing more firmly into each step, encouraging blood to flow more actively through your lower legs. A quiet correction. You flex your toes again inside your boots and continue walking. Scholars continue to discuss how medieval travellers managed longer journeys in winter conditions, particularly when footwear was often simple and not fully insulated. Some suggest that frequent movement was the primary solution, while others believe that travellers planned shorter segments, stopping when conditions became too harsh. You consider both possibilities. For now, you keep moving. The road curves slightly, guiding you through a stretch of land where the air feels more still. Perhaps the terrain offers some protection from the wind. Perhaps it is simply a momentary shift in the landscape. Either way, the change is noticeable. The cold feels softer here. You take advantage of it. Your pace remains steady, but your body relaxes slightly, conserving energy without losing momentum. It is a delicate balance, one that becomes easier to maintain the longer you continue. You are learning as you go, or remembering something older. A faint rustling sound passes through the grass nearby, subtle and brief. You pause for a moment, not out of fear, but out of awareness. The night continues around you unchanged, and after a few seconds you move again, reassured by the stillness that follows. Stillness has meaning, but so does motion. A lesser-known observation from historical studies is that many travellers developed a deep sensitivity to their surroundings, not through formal training, but through necessity. The ability to notice small changes in sound temperature and terrain could make the difference between comfort and danger. You feel that sensitivity growing now. Your body responds more quickly. Your awareness extends further. You are no longer simply moving through the environment. You are part of it, adjusting with it, responding to it in quiet, continuous ways. You pull your cloak closer once more. The warmth remains. Your steps continue. The road does not change, and yet everything feels slightly different. Because you have changed with it, you walk on. You continue along the road, your body now accustomed to the steady rhythm of walking. Your warmth sustained not by comfort, but by quiet, consistent effort. The night has settled fully around you, deep and expansive, with only faint hints of shape and movement at the edges of your vision. The air feels colder than before, pressing gently against your cheeks. Your hands, the small exposed spaces that your clothing cannot fully protect. And then gradually you become aware of something else. A presence. Not sudden, not lump. Just there. You slow slightly, your senses adjusting, listening more carefully to the subtle shifts in sound around you. At first, it is nothing more than a faint variation in the rhythm of footsteps, not your own, slightly out of sync. Then a soft exhale carried on the air, warmer than the wind itself. Someone else is near. You do not speak immediately. Instead, you continue walking, allowing the distance between you to settle into something comfortable, something understood without words. The road has a way of bringing people together like this, quietly, without introduction or expectation. After a few moments, the figure beside you becomes clearer. A traveller much like yourself, wrapped in a thick cloak, their posture slightly hunched against the cold. Their pace matches yours naturally, as if you have both found the same rhythm without needing to discuss it. You walk together. The difference is immediate. Even without touching, the presence of another body changes the experience of the cold. The air between you feels subtly warmer, less exposed. The sound of shared movement creates a steady pattern, something grounding, something reassuring in the quiet night. It is a small comfort, but a real one. In many accounts of medieval journeys, companionship often formed out of necessity rather than intention. Travellers who encountered one another on the road would sometimes continue together for safety, for navigation, and for shared endurance. Not all roads were safe and not all nights were forgiving. Having another person nearby could make a meaningful difference. You feel that now, not as protection exactly, but as balance. The traveller beside you shifts slightly, adjusting their cloak, and for a brief moment your shoulders brush. The contact is light, almost accidental, but the warmth is noticeable. It lingers for just a second longer than expected before you both settle back into your own space. A quiet exchange. No words needed. You notice the scent of their clothing as the wind shifts. Wool like your own, but mixed with something else. Smoke perhaps from a recent fire, or the faint trace of leather worn and weathered over time. These small details tell a story even if it is never spoken aloud. You continue forward together. Your steps align more closely now, the rhythm becoming shared rather than individual. It reduces the sense of isolation that had settled around you earlier. The road still stretches endlessly ahead, but it no longer feels quite as empty. A small difference, but meaningful. Some historical interpretations suggest that groups of travellers would deliberately walk close together during colder conditions, not only for companionship but to conserve warmth. Bodies moving in proximity could reduce exposure to wind and create a slightly more stable pocket of air between them. You test this without thinking. You move a fraction closer, not enough to intrude, but enough to feel the subtle change. The wind feels less sharp here, or its edge softened by the presence of another form beside you. Your body responds almost immediately to relaxing, just slightly, conserving energy that would otherwise be spent resisting the cold. It works better than expected. The traveller beside you adjusts their pace again, and you match it without effort. There is a quiet cooperation in this something instinctive. Neither of you leads, neither follows. You simply move together, guided by the shared need to keep going. A faint sound breaks the silence, a low murmur, almost a word, though not fully formed. You glance briefly, but there is no clear attempt at conversation, perhaps just a reflex, a habit carried from warmer places where speech comes more easily. Here words feel unnecessary. Breath matters more. You continue in silence, but the silence is different now. It is not empty. It holds presence, awareness, a quiet understanding that does not require explanation. The cold is still there, pressing gently against your outer layers, but it feels less overwhelming when it is not faced alone. You notice how your body responds. Your shoulders are less tense. Your breathing remains steady. Even your steps feel more grounded, as if the shared rhythm has reinforced your own balance. It is not a dramatic change, but it's enough to matter. A lesser-known observation from historical travel records is that emotional states could influence physical endurance more than expected. Companionship, even without conversation, often helped travelers push through difficult conditions simply by reducing the mental weight of isolation. You feel that truth quietly. The road curves slightly again, guiding both of you through a narrower stretch where the land rises gently on either side. The wind shifts, moving above rather than directly across your path. The air feels calmer here, less intrusive. You both take advantage of it. Your pace remains steady, but your body relaxes further, conserving warmth more effectively. The layers of your clothing continue to do their work, holding the heat you generate, while the presence beside you adds another subtle layer of protection. You adjust your cloak once more. The fabric settles into place, its rough texture familiar now, almost comforting. It no longer feels like something separate from you. It feels like an extension of your body responding to movement, adapting to need. You glance upward. The stars remain scattered across the sky, distant and unchanged. They offer no warmth, no guidance beyond their quiet presence. But somehow they feel less distant when the road is shared. Historians continue to explore how often these temporary bonds formed and dissolved along medieval routes as travellers came together for a time and then parted when their paths diverged. These connections were often brief, but they carried a quiet importance in journeys that could otherwise feel endless. You understand that now. You do not know this person. You may not walk together for long, but for this moment on this cold road, their presence shapes your experience in ways that are both subtle and profound. You walk on, together. You continue forward with your quiet companion, the rhythm of shared footsteps settling into something steady and familiar. The cold remains present, but it no longer feels as sharp as it once did. Your body has adapted, your awareness refined, and the simple act of moving beside another has softened the edges of the night. After some time, the road begins to open into a slightly wider stretch of land. You both slow. There is no spoken agreement yet. The decision feels mutual. The ground here appears drier, less uneven, and the wind, though still present, moves more gently across the surface. It feels like a place where a pause might be possible. A careful pause. You stop walking. The absence of motion is immediate, and with it, the first hint of cold begins to return. Your body no longer generating as much heat reacts quickly. You shift your weight, keeping small movements in your legs, preventing stiffness from settling in too deeply. Your companion does the same. There is a brief moment of stillness as you both consider the space around you. The darkness conceals much, but certain details remain clear. A slight dip in the ground, a cluster of low stones, a patch of earth that feels less exposed to the wind. It could work. You move toward it. Kneeling slightly, you reach down and touch the ground. It feels cold but firm, not damp enough to cause concern. That matters more than comfort. Dryness is often the first requirement for even the simplest attempt at warmth. You begin to gather what little is available. Small twigs, dry grass, fragments of brittle branches that snap softly when bent. The sounds are quiet but distinct, each one marking progress in a task that feels both simple and essential. Your fingers move carefully, aware of their growing stiffness, but still responsive enough to manage the work. A small pile forms, not impressive but sufficient. In many medieval journeys, fire was not always guaranteed, especially in open areas without shelter. Travellers relied on whatever materials they could find nearby, often making quick judgments about what would burn well enough to provide temporary warmth. The skill was not in building large fires, but in building efficient ones. You understand that now. You arrange the materials carefully, creating a small structure that allows air to move through it. The wind, though gentle, will help if used correctly. Too much and it will extinguish the flame. Too little and the fire will struggle to grow. Balance again. Your companion kneels nearby, adding a few thicker pieces of wood to the outer edge. Their movements are quiet practice, suggesting familiarity with this process. You do not exchange words, but the cooperation is clear. A shared task. You reach for the small tool you carry, something simple worn from use. The act of creating a spark requires patience, especially with cold hands. You steady yourself, focusing on the motion, the angle, the pressure. Once, twice, a faint spark appears, then disappears. You try again. This time it catches. A small glow forms within the dry grass, barely visible at first. You lean closer, shielding it slightly with your hands, allowing it to grow without interference from the wind. A soft breath, controlled and steady, feeds it just enough. The flame emerges, small, flickable, alive. You both remain still for a moment, watching as it begins to take hold. The dry materials respond quickly, their edges curling as the heat spreads. A faint crackling sound follows, subtle but reassuring. The fire grows not large, but stable enough to matter. It is enough. The warmth reaches you slowly. At first, it is barely noticeable, a slight shift in the air directly in front of you. Then it strengthens, spreading outward in a gentle wave that contrasts with the surrounding cold. You extend your hands toward it, careful not to move too close too quickly. Your fingers begin to respond. A tingling sensation followed by a gradual return of warmth. It is not immediate. It takes time, but the change is real and your body welcomes it. A quiet relief. Some records suggest that travellers often kept fires small and controlled, especially when no shelter was available. Large fires consumed more fuel and could be difficult to maintain, while smaller ones provided just enough heat to restore circulation and offer temporary comfort. You see the wisdom in that. The fire continues to burn steadily, its light casting soft, shifting shadows across the ground. The stones nearby reflect a small portion of its heat, creating a slightly warmer space around you. You adjust your position, sitting close enough to benefit, but far enough to remain comfortable. Your companion mirrors the movement. The silence between you remains, but it feels different now. Not empty, not distant, simply calm. The kind of quiet that allows each of you to focus on the simple act of warming your hands, of feeling your body return to balance. A faint scent rises from the fire. Dry wood, a hint of smoke, something familiar and grounding. It lingers in the air, mixing with the cold, creating a contrast that feels almost comforting. You inhale slowly, letting it settle, letting it become part of the moment. You glance at the surrounding darkness. The fire does not push it back very far. Beyond a small circle of light, the night remains unchanged, deep, quiet, vast. But within this circle there is a sense of control, however temporary. You shift slightly, extending your feet closer to the warmth. The heat reaches them, slowly penetrating through your footwear, easing the stiffness that had begun to settle there. You flex your toes again, encouraging the warmth to spread, maintaining circulation. A small adjustment, repeated with care. There is a curious detail sometimes noted in historical discussions where travellers would use stones heated by the fire to retain warmth even after the flames had diminished. These stones, once warmed, could be wrapped or placed nearby, offering a lingering source of heat. You consider the stones around you, perhaps later. For now, the fire is enough for... Enough? You remain there, hands extended, body relaxed, just enough to conserve energy without losing awareness. The warmth does not last forever, but it does not need to. It serves its purpose in this moment, restoring what the cold has taken, preparing you for the next stretch of the journey. The flames flicker gently. The road waits, and when the time comes, you will rise again carrying this brief warmth with you. As you step back into the night, you remain beside the small fire for a while longer, letting its warmth settle into your hands, your feet, and the deeper parts of your body that had slowly cooled during the walk. The flames move gently, rising and falling in a steady rhythm, never growing too large, never fading completely. But you know this cannot last. The cold waits just beyond the light. You shift your weight and begin to look more carefully at the ground around you. Not just where you sit, but the wider space, the shape of the land, the way the air moves across it. Rest is possible, but only if chosen wisely. Where you stop matters, quite a bit. You stand slowly, feeling the difference immediately as the cooler air touches parts of your body that had been warmed by the fire. The contrast is noticeable but not overwhelming. You step a short distance away, turning slightly, observing how the wind behaves from different angles. It comes in soft currents here, not constant but present. You notice how the land rises gently to one side, forming a shallow slope that interrupts the flow of air. It is not a wall, not true shelter, but it changes the movement of the wind just enough to create a calmer space behind it. You move toward that area. Your companion follows without needing direction. Together you test the ground again, pressing down with your boots, feeling for dampness or uneven some patches that might cause discomfort later. The earth here feels firmer, less exposed, and slightly warmer than the surrounding ground. A subtle difference, but important. Across many regions of medieval Europe, travellers learned to read the land in this way, choosing resting places based on wind direction, elevation, and moisture. Even a slight dip in the terrain could provide a measure of protection, reducing heat loss during the coldest hours of the night. You begin to understand how much thought went into something as simple as stopping. It is never random. You crouch and run your hand across the surface. The soil is dry enough with only a faint trace of cold moisture beneath. It will not draw heat from your body too quickly, which is what matters most. You brush aside a few small stones, creating a smoother area. Your companion does the same nearby. There is a quiet coordination in your actions, each of you preparing a small space without interfering with the other. The fire remains a short distance away, still visible, still providing light, but not close enough to pose any risk. A careful balance. You gather a few loose materials from the surrounding area. Dry grass, scattered leaves, thin branches. Not for fire this time, but for the ground itself. You place them beneath where you intend to sit, forming a thin layer that separates you from the cold earth. It is not soft, but it helps. Some sources suggest that travellers often used whatever natural materials were available to create basic insulation from the ground. Direct contact with cold soil could drain body heat quickly, making even short periods of rest uncomfortable or dangerous. You lower yourself slowly. The layer beneath you compresses slightly, creating a small barrier that reduces the immediate chill. It is not complete protection, but it changes the sensation enough to make a difference. You adjust your position, finding a balance where your weight is supported evenly. You pull your cloak tighter. The fabric wraps around you, enclosing your body more fully now that you are no longer generating heat through movement. You tuck the edges carefully, sealing small openings where the cold air might enter. Your hands move methodically, guided by the instinct more than thought. Every gap matters. The wind shifts again, brushing lightly across the top of the slope before passing over you. Here in this slightly sheltered space, its force is reduced. You can still feel it, but it no longer cuts through your layers as sharply as before. You chose well. Your companion settles nearby, adjusting their own cloak in a similar way. For a brief moment, you both remain still, listening to the quiet sounds of the night, the soft crackle of the distant fire, the faint movement of air across the land. There is a sense of pause, not complete rest, but close. A lesser-known observation from historical travel accounts is that full sleep was not always possible in such conditions. Instead, travellers often relied on short periods of rest, remaining partially aware of their surroundings, while allowing their bodies to recover just enough to continue. You feel that state beginning to form. Your body relaxes, but not entirely. Your awareness softens, but it does not disappear. You remain connected to the environment, ready to respond if needed, yet calm enough to conserve energy. It is a delicate state. You shift slightly, adjusting your legs, ensuring that circulation continues. Stillness can bring comfort, but too much of it invites cold to return. So you make small movements, subtle changes that keep your body engaged without disrupting your rest. A quiet habit, repeated without effort. The fire flickers in the distance, its light dimmer now but still present. You consider adding more fuel, but decide against it for the moment. The warmth it provided has already done its work. What matters now is maintaining your own heat. You close your eyes briefly, not fully, just enough to rest them. The sounds of the night continue around you. The wind softer now, the occasional rustle of something moving through the grass, the steady presence of another person nearby, their breathing slow, even reassuring in its consistency. You are not alone, and that changes everything. Scholars continue to explore how travelers balanced rest and vigilance during long journeys, particularly in environments where danger could come from both the cold and the unknown. It was not simply about sleeping, it was about enduring the night in a way that preserved strength for the journey ahead. You understand that now. This is not comfort, this is preparation. You pull your cloak slightly higher, covering more of your face, leaving only a small opening for breath. The air you exhale warms the space within, creating a pocket of heat that lingers briefly before fading. You repeat this naturally without thinking, a small cycle, sustaining itself. Your body settles further, not asleep, but resting, and in this carefully chosen place shaped by the land, protected by small decisions, you find a quiet moment of stability in a world that offers very little of it. The night continues, but you endure it. You remain in that half-resting state for a while, your body settled yet alert, your warmth held carefully within the layers you have arranged. The ground beneath you feels less intrusive now, softened slightly by the thin barrier you created. The fire behind you has dimmed further, its glow reduced to a low, steady pulse. Eventually you open your eyes fully. The cold has not disappeared. It never does, but it has changed its character. It feels less immediate, less pressing, as if your body has negotiated a quiet agreement with it. You shift slowly and sit upright. Your cloak slides with you, its weight settling across your shoulders and back. You take a moment to adjust it again, this time, with more intention, wrapping it more completely around your body. You draw one side across your chest, then tuck the opposite edge beneath your arm, creating a tighter enclosure. It becomes something more than clothing. It becomes a space. Many descriptions from the medieval period emphasize how cloaks functioned as versatile tools during travel. They were not only garments, but also blankets, windbreaks, and sometimes even makeshift coverings against rain or frost. A well-used cloak could serve several purposes at once, adapting to changing conditions. You feel that adaptability now. You pull the fabric over your knees, enclosing your legs within its warmth. The air inside grows slightly warmer with each breath you take, held in place by the layers of wool that resist the cold outside. It is not perfect insulation, but it creates a small environment that moves with you, a private shelter. You lean forward slightly, drawing the cloak closer around your face. The scent of wool surrounds you again, mixed with faint traces of smoke and earth. It is familiar now, grounding, almost reassuring in its consistency. Your companion shifts nearby. They mirror a similar motion, wrapping their own cloak, tightly adjusting the folds with practiced hands. For a moment, the two of you sit in near stillness, each enclosed within your own small space, yet aware of the other's presence. Separate yet connected. A lesser discussed detail in historical clothing studies is how cloaks were often designed without complex fastenings, allowing them to be easily repositioned depending on need. This flexibility made them especially valuable for travelers who had to adapt quickly to changing weather. You experiment with this. You loosen one edge slightly, then tighten it again, noticing how small adjustments alter the flow of air inside. Too loose and the warmth escapes. Too tight and movement becomes restricted. You find a middle ground, one that feels sustainable over time. You settle into it. The wind shifts again, passing over the rise in the land and brushing lightly against the outer surface of your cloak. You feel it, but only faintly. The fabric absorbs much of its force, diffusing it before it can reach your body. It works better than expected. Some interpretations of medieval travel suggest that experienced travelers developed a kind of intuitive understanding of how to position their clothing against the wind. Rather than facing it directly, they would angle their bodies, allowing the fabric to deflect the airflow more effectively. You try this without thinking. You turn slightly, adjusting your posture so that the broadest part of your cloak faces the wind. The change is immediate. The cold no longer presses directly against your chest, but glides across the surface, losing some of its intensity. A small shift, a meaningful result. You draw your hands inside the cloak, pressing them against your torso. The warmth there is stronger, preserved by the layers and your own body heat. Your fingers begin to relax, the stiffness easing as circulation continues. You exhale slowly. Your breath warms the space in front of your face, briefly fogging the air before it disappears. You lower your head slightly, allowing that warmth to linger within the folds of the fabric. It is a subtle effect, but one that adds to the overall comfort. Every small detail contributes. There is an interesting observation found in some surviving accounts, where travellers described using their cloaks to cover not just their bodies but parts of their faces during particularly cold nights. By reducing exposed skin, they could conserve more heat and avoid the sharp bite of the air. You follow that instinct now. You lift the edge of the cloak slightly higher, shielding your cheeks and chin. Only a narrow opening remains for breathing, and even that you adjust, occasionally balancing warmth with the need for fresh air. It becomes a rhythm. Lift, adjust, breathe, settle. Your companion shifts again, their movements slow and deliberate. For a brief moment, the edge of their cloak brushes against yours, and you feel a slight increase in warmth where the fabrics overlap. You do not move away, neither do they. The shared contact creates a small pocket of retained heat between you, subtle but noticeable. It does not last long, but it leaves an impression of how proximity can enhance even the simplest forms of protection. A quiet advantage. Some scholars continue to explore how communal practices influence survival strategies during travel, particularly in colder climates. While individual preparation mattered, the ability to adapt collectively often improved outcomes in subtle ways. You understand that without needing to analyze it. You simply feel it. The fire behind you dims further, its light now barely reaching your position. The night wreath claims its space, gradually wrapping the land once more in darkness. Yet within your cloak, within this carefully arranged layer of fabric and warmth, you maintain a small, steady comfort. It is enough. For now, you shift your legs slightly, maintaining circulation, ensuring that the warmth does not fade too quickly. Your body remains engaged even in stillness, making constant small adjustments that preserve balance. You remain seated, wrapped, sheltered, not by walls or roofs, but by something far simpler. And as the night continues, you begin to see how such simplicity, when understood and used well, becomes its own form of protection. You rest there, quietly. You remain wrapped in your cloak, your body held within that small pocket of warmth you have created, your breathing slow and steady. The night feels deeper now, quieter, as if the world itself has settled into stillness. The fire behind you has faded to embers, its glow faint but persistent, offering just enough light to remind you that it once burned brighter. After a while, a subtle sensation begins to rise within you. Hunger, not sharp or urgent, but present. You shift slightly, becoming more aware of your body beyond the cold, beyond the need for warmth. There is a quiet reminder that energy must be maintained, that movement and heat both rely on something deeper. Fuel. You reach slowly beneath your cloak, feeling for the small pouch you carry. The fabric is worn familiar to your touch, and inside you find what you expect. Simple food, nothing elaborate, nothing soft or fresh, but enough. You bring a small portion to your mouth, chewing slowly. The texture is firm, slightly dry, requiring effort to break down. The taste is mild, perhaps a hint of salt, perhaps something grain-based preserved for travel rather than comfort. You swallow carefully. The effect is not immediate, but it begins. In medieval travel, food was rarely abundant during journeys, especially for those without wealth. Most travellers carried items that could endure time and changing weather, such as hard bread, dried meat, or small amounts of cheese. These foods were chosen not for pleasure, but for their ability to sustain the body over long distances. You take another small bite. Your body responds slowly, drawing from the nutrients, converting them into the energy needed to continue. It is not a dramatic surge, it is gradual, steady, almost unnoticeable at first. But it matters. You feel a faint warmth building from within, and not from the fire, not from your clothing, but from your own internal process. It spreads, quietly reinforcing the warmth you have already preserved. A different kind of heat. Some historical interpretations suggest that travellers were aware, at least in practical terms, of the connection between food and warmth. Eating before rest or during cold conditions helped sustain body temperature, especially when external heat sources were limited. You understand this now, not as theory, but as experience. You take a sip from a small container, the liquid inside cool, perhaps water, perhaps something slightly thicker. It refreshes your throat, but you are careful not to drink too much. Cold liquid can lower your internal warmth if taken in excess, especially when your body is already working to maintain heat. Balance again. Always balance. You wrap the remaining food carefully and return it to your pouch. There is no sense of indulgence here, no desire to eat beyond what is needed. Every portion must last, must serve its purpose across time rather than in a single moment. You settle back into your position. The cloak holds its warmth. Your body, now supported by a small intake of food, feels steadier, more prepared. The cold remains present, but it no longer feels like something that might overtake you. Instead, it feels like something you are managing, a quiet shift in control. There is an interesting detail occasionally mentioned in studies of medieval diets, where certain foods, particularly those higher in fat, were valued for their ability to provide longer-lasting energy. Though not always available to everyone, these foods could help sustain warmth over extended periods. You consider what you carry. Simple, limited, but sufficient. Your companion moves slightly beside you, the soft rustle of fabric signaling a similar action. Perhaps they too are eating, drawing from their own small supply. The shared experience continues without words, each of you tending to your own needs within the quiet space you occupy. You listen. The night remains calm. The wind has softened further now, only a faint presence that brushes occasionally against the outer edges of your cloak. The ground beneath you holds its firmness, the layer you created still providing a small measure of insulation. You adjust your posture again, a slight shift of your legs, a repositioning of your shoulders. These movements are small, but they maintain circulation, ensuring that the warmth you have built does not fade too quickly. You remain aware, not tense, but attentive. Some scholars continue to examine how medieval travellers balanced nourishment and movement, particularly during colder months when energy demands were higher. It is believed that eating small amounts at regular intervals helped maintain stability rather than consuming larger portions all at once. You follow that pattern naturally, without needing to think. A faint warmth continues to spread through your body, subtle but steady. It supports your muscles, your circulation, your ability to remain still without losing too much heat. Combined with your cloak and the protection of the land around you, it creates a layered system of survival. Each part matters, each part contributes. You draw your cloak slightly closer once more, sealing in the warmth you have generated. The fabric feels heavier now, not because it has changed, but because you're more aware of its presence, its role in maintaining your comfort. You close your eyes briefly again. The darkness behind them feels no different from the darkness around you, but your body feels more still now, more supported, less vulnerable to the slow creep of cold that defined the earlier part of your journey. You rest, not fully, but enough. And in this quiet moment, sustained by simple food, careful movement, and a deep awareness of your own body, you begin to understand how even the smallest resources can extend your endurance. The night continues, but so do you. You remain seated for a while longer, your body held in a careful balance between rest and awareness. The warmth from your small meal lingers quietly within you, reinforcing the protection offered by your cloak and the ground beneath. The night has deepened into a calm stillness, and for a moment everything feels steady. Then you hear it, a soft low sound, not the wind, not the shifting grass, something heavier. You open your eyes fully and turn your head slightly, listening more closely. The sound comes again, a slow exhale followed by a gentle movement against the earth. Your companion has noticed it too. Their posture changes subtly, more alert now, though still calm. Out of the darkness, a shape begins to form. Large, quiet, familiar in its movement. An animal. It steps closer, not directly toward you, but along the edge of your small circle of space. Its breath is visible in the cold air, rising in soft clouds that fade almost as quickly as they appear. You can hear the faint sound of its hooves pressing into the ground, steady and controlled. A horse. You recognize it by its outline, by the rhythm of its movement, by the low warmth that seems to follow it even from a short distance. It does not seem alarmed, nor does it approach with urgency. It simply exists within the same space, sharing the night. You remain still. The horse lowers its head slightly, perhaps searching for something on the ground, perhaps simply resting. Its presence changes the atmosphere in a way that is difficult to describe. The cold feels less empty now, less absolute. Warmer, in a subtle way. In many medieval journeys, animals were not only companions, but essential partners in survival. Horses, mules, and other beasts of burden carried goods, reduced physical strain, and provided a form of mobility that made long distances more manageable. But beyond these practical roles, they also contributed something less tangible. Presence. You watch the horse as it shifts its weight, its body releasing a faint warmth into the surrounding air. It is not strong enough to transform the space entirely, but it is noticeable. A slight softening of the cold, a gentle change in how the air feels as it moves. You understand instinctively. You move just a little closer, not enough to disturb it, not enough to claim anything, just enough to feel the difference more clearly. The warmth from its body reaches you in faint waves carried by the stillness of the night. It helps. More than you expected. There is an often overlooked detail in historical discussions where animals were sometimes used as a source of shared warmth during travel. Not in a deliberate or structured way, but simply through proximity. Their body heat combined with their calm presence could ease the harshness of cold conditions. You experience that now. The horse exhales again, a slow, steady breath that carries a warmth your own breath cannot match. You feel it brush lightly across your hands, your face, before it fades into the surrounding air. A small moment, but meaningful. Your companion shifts slightly, adjusting their position as well. The three of you form a loose arrangement, not planned, not fixed, but balanced in a way that feels natural. No one intrudes, no one withdraws. You simply share the space. The scent of the animal reaches you next. Earthy, warm, a mixture of hay leather and something deeper, something that speaks of long journeys and steady endurance. It is not unpleasant. It blends with the other scents of the night, adding another layer to the environment. You breathe it in. It feels grounding. Some historians have suggested that travellers often developed strong bonds with their animals, not only out of necessity, but because of the quiet reliability they offered. In uncertain conditions, that reliability became a source of comfort, even without words or gestures. You begin to understand that. The horse remains calm, its movements slow, its presence steady. It does not demand attention. It does not seek interaction. It simply exists alongside you, contributing to the shared experience of the night. You reach out slightly, not to touch, just to feel the space between. The warmth is there, subtle but consistent, extending just far enough to matter. You draw your hand back slowly, preserving that sensation, allowing it to settle into your awareness. A quiet advantage. You adjust your cloak, again positioning yourself so that the small currents of warmer air reach you more directly. The fabric shifts with a soft sound, catching and holding the warmth just long enough to make a difference. It is a small system, but it works. A lesser-known observation from travel records suggests that animals also provided a sense of security during rest. Their awareness of the environment often exceeded that of humans, and their reactions could signal changes or potential danger before it became visible. You notice how the horse listens. Its ears shift slightly, responding to distant sounds you cannot yet detect. Its posture remains relaxed but attentive. It exists in a state of awareness that feels both calm and ready. You trust it, not completely, But enough. The night continues around you unchanged in its vastness, yet altered in its feeling. The cold is still present, but it no longer feels isolating. It is part of a shared experience now, something you endure alongside others, both human and animal. You settle back slightly. Your body remains warm enough, your mind remains calm. The small additions to your environment, the presence of another traveller. The quiet companionship of the horse have created a balance that feels sustainable. For now, you close your eyes again just for a moment. The sounds remain. The breathing, the faint movement, the steady rhythm of life continuing even in the coldest part of the night. You are still here, still warm enough, still enduring. And in this quiet shared space, you begin to understand how survival was never just about tools or techniques, but about connection, presence, and the subtle ways living things supported one another. The road will continue, but for now you remain. You remain where you are wrapped in your cloak, the faint warmth of food and shared presence still lingering around you. The horse stands nearby, quiet and steady, while your companion rests in a similar stillness. The night has reached its deepest point where time feels stretched and indistinct. Sleep begins to approach, not suddenly, not completely, or gently. Your body signals the need for rest, yet the cold reminds you that sleep must be handled carefully. You cannot simply lie down and drift away without thought. The ground is cold, the air uncertain, and your warmth, though steady, is not unlimited. You adjust your position slowly. Lowering yourself further, you lean onto your side, keeping your cloak wrapped tightly around you. Your knees draw inward, reducing the space your body must keep warm. It is a natural posture, one that conserves heat by minimizing exposure. You feel the difference immediately. Less surface exposed, more warmth retained. Across many historical interpretations, this curled posture appears frequently in descriptions of travelers resting outdoors. Though rarely explained in detail, it reflects an instinctive understanding of how to preserve body heat during sleep. You settle into it. Your arm tucks beneath your head, not for comfort, but for practicality. It lifts your face slightly away from the ground, allowing you to breathe more easily while maintaining your protective layers. Your other hand remains close to your chest, held within the warmth of your cloak. A compact form, efficient. You close your eyes, only partially. The world does not disappear, it softens. The sounds of the night continue, though they seem more distant now. The faint shifting of the horse, the quiet breathing of your companion, the occasional whisper of wind passing over the land. These sounds do not disturb you, they anchor you. You remain aware, even as you rest. Some medieval travel narratives suggest that sleep during such conditions was often light and fragmented. Rather than deep, uninterrupted rest, travelers experienced short intervals of sleep. Waking periodically to adjust their position, tend to warmth, or simply remain alert to their surroundings. You drift into that state now, not fully asleep, but close. Your breathing slows, your muscles relax, yet a part of your awareness remains active, monitoring the environment without effort. It is not tension, it is readiness, a quiet form of rest. The ground beneath you feels firm but no longer harsh. The layer you created earlier continues to provide a small buffer against the cold, and your body, now curled and contained, retains warmth more effectively than before. You feel stable, not comfortable, but stable. There is an interesting detail found in some lesser-known accounts, where travelers described using their cloaks not only to cover themselves, but to create a kind of enclosed pocket around their entire body during sleep. By tucking the edges carefully, they could reduce airflow and preserve warmth throughout the night. You notice this as you shift slightly. The cloak remains in place, its edges secured by your own weight and position. The air inside feels warmer than the air outside, and you instinctively adjust to maintain that balance. A small enclosure, self-made. Your companion shifts near. The sound is soft, a brief movement followed by stillness again. You sense that they too are resting in this same careful way, neither fully asleep nor fully awake, maintaining the same balance between rest and awareness. The horse exhales slowly, a steady sound. Reassuring, you feel its presence even without opening your eyes, its warmth still faintly reaching you, its movements calm and predictable. It remains part of this quiet arrangement, contributing without intention. You drift slightly deeper. Your thoughts begin to slow, losing their sharp edges, becoming softer, more fluid. The road, the cold, the effort of the journey all seem to fade into the background, replaced by a simple focus on breath, warmth and stillness. Time becomes unclear. Moments stretch, then pass. Scholars continue to examine how people in pre-modern societies adapted their sleep patterns to environmental conditions, suggesting that segmented or interrupted sleep may have been more common than the continuous sleep many expect today. You experience something like that now. A brief descent into rest, then a gentle return. You open your eyes, lightly checking your surroundings without fully rising. The night remains unchanged. The fire is nearly gone. The stars still stretch above, distant and unmoving. Everything is as it was. You close your eyes again. Your body shifts just enough to maintain circulation. A small movement of your legs, a slight adjustment of your shoulders. These motions are subtle, almost automatic, ensuring that warmth continues to flow even in stillness. You remain in that state, balanced, resting without surrendering awareness. The cold continues to exist around you, but it no longer feels like a threat pressing inward. It feels like a condition. You are managing something you understand more clearly with each passing moment. You breathe slowly. In, out. The rhythm continues. There is a quiet resilience in this way of resting, a method shaped not by comfort but by necessity. It is not about achieving perfect sleep. It is about preserving enough energy to continue when the time comes. And you are doing that, without effort, without urgency. Simply by adapting, the night holds you there in that gentle, suspended state where rest and awareness exist together, where warmth is maintained through careful positioning and quiet understanding. You remain, still enough to recover, aware enough to endure. And as the hours pass, you begin to feel how even this fragile form of rest can sustain you through the cold, preparing you for the road that still lies ahead. You remain in that light, careful rest, your body curled within the shelter of your cloak, your breathing slow and even. The night stretches onward, quiet and deep, yet something begins to change. Not in sound, not in light, but in the subtle feel of the air itself. It grows heavier, colder. You open your eyes, slightly sensing the shift before fully understanding it. A faint brightness begins to form across the ground, not from firelight or stars, but from something softer, more diffuse. Snow. At first, it is almost invisible. Small drifting particles that move gently through the air, settling without sound. You watch as they gather on the edges of your cloak on the ground nearby, on the still form of the horse. You remain still, observing. The cold deepens, yet the snow brings a strange quiet with it. The sounds of the night soften even further, as if the falling flakes absorb what little noise remains. The world feels more contained, more distant. A calm stillness. You brush a small amount of snow from your cloak, watching how it melts slightly, where it touches the warmer surface, then disappears. The fabric holds firm, resisting the moisture for now. That matters. There is a well-documented observation in historical studies that snow while cold can also act as a form of insulation. When it accumulates, it traps air within its structure, reducing heat loss from the ground and even from objects it covers. You begin to notice this. The ground beneath you feels slightly less harsh than before as a thin layer of snow forms over the surface. It does not warm the earth, but it softens the transfer of cold, creating a barrier that changes the sensation. A quiet benefit. You adjust your position slightly, allowing the cloak to cover more of your body, ensuring that the snow does not settle directly against exposed areas. Your movements are slow, deliberate, preserving the warmth you have built. Your companion shifts nearby. Stable. The sound is soft, almost absorbed by the snow as it continues to fall. They brush their own cloak in a similar way, maintaining dryness, preventing moisture from seeping through. The horse remains still. Its back gathers a light dusting, yet its body heat prevents the snow from settling too deeply. You notice how it shakes slightly at intervals, removing the build-up before it becomes significant. A simple action, repeated when needed. Some historians suggest that animals adapted naturally to such conditions, using movement and instinctive behaviors to manage snow and cold without conscious planning. Their responses, though simple, were often highly effective. You watch closely. Learning without thinking. The snow continues to fall, slightly thicker now, though still gentle. It changes the landscape in subtle ways, softening edges, filling small gaps, creating a more uniform surface. The road, once uneven and textured, begins to blur into a smoother line. You feel the difference. The air feels quieter, more contained. A lesser-known detail in environmental studies is that fresh snow can reflect even small amounts of available light, making the surroundings appear slightly brighter despite the darkness. It is not enough to illuminate the path fully, but it alters perception. You notice this now. The ground seems faintly visible, not clear, but present enough to orient yourself if needed. The contrast between shapes becomes softer, less defined, yet more evenly distributed. You remain where you are. The snow does not demand movement, at least not yet. You pull your cloak tighter again, ensuring that its outer layer sheds as much moisture as possible. Wool has a natural resistance to water, allowing it to retain warmth even when slightly damp. But you understand that too much moisture could still become a problem. You stay attentive. Always. Scholars continue to examine how travelers responded to sudden changes in weather, particularly snowfall during open travel. Some suggest that continuing movement was preferred in heavier conditions, while others believe that temporary rest, if properly managed, could be equally effective. You consider both. For now, stillness holds. Your body remains warm enough. Your position remains stable. The snow, though cold, has not yet created discomfort beyond what you can manage. You close your eyes briefly again. The sensation of falling snow becomes part of the environment. A soft, almost imperceptible touch against your cloak, your surroundings, the space you occupy. It does not disturb your rest. It becomes part of it. A quiet presence. You breathe slowly. The air feels colder as it enters your lungs, but your body continues to respond, maintaining its internal warmth. The small enclosure created by your cloak remains effective, holding what you need, releasing only what cannot be kept. You shift slightly once more. A small movement of your legs, a subtle adjustment of your shoulders. These actions maintain circulation, ensuring that the cold does not settle too deeply during your rest. You remain balanced, resting, aware. The snow continues to gather, but not enough to overwhelm. It forms a thin layer across the ground, across the shapes around you, creating a quieter, more uniform world. You open your eyes again. The scene has changed. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Everything feels softer now, the edges less sharp. The cold still present, but held differently within this new layer of the world. You understand something in this moment. The environment is not always an enemy. Sometimes it offers small advantages, subtle shifts that, when recognized, can be used to endure more effectively. You remain still, allowing this understanding to settle. The night continues. The snow falls, and you endure it not by resisting but by adapting, finding small ways to exist within its quiet, persistent presence. You remain curled within your cloak as the snow settles lightly across the ground, your body steady, your breath slow and measured. The quiet has deepened, even further softened, by the thin white layer now covering the land. For a while everything feels still. Then the wind returns. At first it is only a faint movement, a subtle shift in the air that brushes across the surface of your cloak. You notice it without reacting, allowing your awareness to adjust gradually. The snowflakes begin to drift sideways instead of falling straight down. The direction has changed. You open your eyes more fully and lift your head, slightly listening. The wind carries a low, continuous tone, now moving across the landscape with more intention than before. It is not violent, but it is persistent, and persistence matters. You feel it reach for the edges of your cloak, testing the small openings you have carefully sealed. A slight chill slips through near your shoulder, then fades as you adjust the fabric, closing the gap again. A small correction, made quickly. In many discussions of medieval travel, wind is often described as one of the most challenging elements to manage during cold journeys. Unlike still air, which allows warmth to settle, moving air strips heat away from the body, increasing the rate at which cold is felt. You begin to feel that now, not as a sudden change, but as a gradual pressure. You shift your position, turning your body slightly so that your back faces the direction of the wind. The cloak follows your movement, presenting a broader surface to the airflow, allowing it to pass over rather than directly through. The difference is immediate, subtle but real. The cold no longer reaches your chest as easily. Instead, it moves across the outer layer of fabric, losing some of its intensity before it can affect you. You settle into this new orientation. The slope of the land still offers some protection, but the wind now moves differently, curling around edges, finding new paths. You remain attentive, adjusting whenever you feel the cold press through in unexpected ways. You do not resist the wind. You work with it. A lesser discussed observation in historical travel studies is that experienced travelers often change their position frequently in response to wind shifts rather than remaining fixed in one orientation. This allowed them to maintain warmth more effectively over time. You follow that pattern naturally. Your companion shifts as well. You hear the soft movement of fabric, the quiet repositioning that mirrors your own adjustments. The two of you remain separate yet responsive to the same conditions, adapting in a parallel without needing to communicate. The horse reacts too. It turns slightly, angling its body against the wind, lowering its head just enough to reduce exposure. Its movements are calm, deliberate, guided by instinct rather than thought. You observe this, learning again. There is a quiet lesson in how it moves, how it presents its strongest side to the wind, how it minimizes openings where cold air might enter. You adjust your own posture slightly, refining your position to match the principle, if not the exact form. A shared understanding across species. The wind strengthens a little more, not harsh, but steady. You feel its press against your cloak, testing its limits, searching for weaknesses. The fabric responds, shifting slightly, but holding firm. You tighten your grip on the edges, ensuring they remain in place. Every detail matters now. You draw your knees closer again, reducing your surface area, preserving the warmth within. Your breathing remains slow, controlled, each exhale warming the small space inside your cloak before fading into the larger cold. You remain calm. That is important. Some historical interpretations suggest that maintaining composure in cold conditions was as important as physical preparation. Panic or sudden movements could disrupt carefully maintained warmth, leading to faster heat loss. You avoid that. You move slowly, deliberately. The snow continues to fall, though the wind now carries it in uneven patterns, creating small drifts along the ground. You notice how it gathers more heavily on one side of your position, shaped by the direction of the airflow. You adjust again, turning slightly, aligning yourself with the changing pattern. A quiet cycle of observation and response. Scholars continue to explore how environmental awareness played a central role in survival during pre-modern travel, suggesting that those who paid close attention to subtle changes were better equipped to endure difficult conditions. You feel that awareness growing. Each sensation becomes clearer, each adjustment more precise. You are no longer reacting after the fact. You are anticipating. The wind begins to settle after a time, its intensity easing, though it does not disappear entirely. It continues to move across the land, but with less force, less urgency. You relax slightly, not completely, but enough. Your body remains warm, your position stable, your cloak still performing its role. The snow, the wind, the cold all remain part of the environment, but none have overwhelmed your ability to adapt. You remain in control, as much as one can be. You close your eyes briefly once more. The sound of the wind becomes a distant hum, the sensation of cold a constant but manageable presence. Your body continues its quiet work, maintaining warmth, preserving energy, preparing for whatever comes next. You rest, still aware, still adjusting. The night continues to move around you, shaped by forces you cannot control yet can respond to in small, meaningful ways. And in that response you endure. You remain settled within your carefully arranged position. Your cloak drawn close, your body angled against the lingering wind. The snow continues to fall in softer patterns now, and the air feels steadier again, less restless than before. The night stretches on quiet and unbroken, yet something else begins to surface. Not from the environment, from within memory. You find yourself recalling small pieces of knowledge, fragments gathered over time, not from formal teaching, but from observation, repetition, and quiet experience. These are not instructions spoken aloud, but habits carried in the body. They return now. You shift your hands slightly, pressing them under your arms for a moment, allowing warmth to transfer from your core into your fingers. The movement feels natural, almost automatic, yet purposeful. It works quickly. This kind of simple technique appears in various reconstructions of medieval travel practices, where preserving heat in extremities was often managed through direct contact with warmer parts of the body rather than external sources. You repeat the motion once more, then release. Your fingers feel more responsive now, less stiff, more capable of subtle movement. It is a small improvement, but in these conditions, small improvements matter. You adjust your feet next. A slight rotation, a gentle flexing of your toes within your footwear. You press your heels into the ground, then ease the pressure, encouraging circulation without creating unnecessary exposure. A quiet rhythm, subtle, effective. There is an overlooked detail in some lesser studied accounts, where travellers described tapping or shifting their feet at regular intervals to prevent numbness during periods of stillness. These small actions helped maintain blood flow without requiring full movement. You find yourself doing exactly that. Without needing to think, you lift your head slightly and glance toward the dim outline of the road. The snow has softened its edges further, making it less distinct yet somehow easier to follow. The landscape feels quieter but not empty. You sense its presence, even in stillness. Your companion shifts nearby, again a faint rustle of fabric, followed by a small movement of their hands. You recognize the pattern now. They are doing the same as you, preserving warmth through small controlled actions rather than large movements. A shared method. Unspoken, some interpretations from historical studies suggest that such techniques were not always consciously taught, but developed through necessity, becoming instinctive responses passed indirectly through observation and imitation. You feel that connection now, not through words, but through mirrored action. The horse exhales softly, its breath visible again in the cold air. It shifts its weight, stamping one foot lightly before settling once more. The movement sends a faint vibration through the ground, a reminder of its presence. You notice how it keeps moving, never fully still, always adjusting. You follow that pattern again, making another small shift in your posture, ensuring that no part of your body remains inactive for too long. Stillness brings rest, but too much of it invites cold to settle deeper. You balance between the two, carefully. There is a perspective sometimes discussed among researchers that experienced travellers carried an internal sense of timing for these adjustments, making small movements at regular intervals without needing external cues. You begin to feel that timing. It emerges naturally, a quiet internal rhythm. You draw your cloak closer once more, tightening it around your shoulders and chest. The fabric responds, holding its shape, preserving the warmth you have maintained. You tuck the edges more securely, ensuring that the wind cannot find easy entry. You refine the enclosure, improving it. A faint scent rises again from the wool, mixed now with the clean, almost sharp smell of fresh snow. The combination feels grounding, connecting you to both your own body and the environment around you. You breathe slowly. The air remains cold, but your body accepts it more easily now. Each breath is measured, controlled, part of the steady system you have built to endure the night. There is a subtle sense of confidence, not strong, but present. A lesser-known observation in historical reconstruction suggests that confidence itself, once established, could influence how travellers responded to challenging conditions. Familiarity reduced hesitation, allowing for quicker, more effective adjustments. You notice that shift within yourself. You no longer pause before making changes. You act, then settle. The snow continues to gather lightly, forming a thin, even layer across the ground and your surroundings. It no longer feels like a new element. It has become part of the environment, something you have already adapted to. You accept it, without resistance. Your companion remains steady, their movements occasional but purposeful. The space between you feels balanced, each of you maintaining your own warmth while contributing to the overall stability of the shared environment. The horse remains calm, its presence unchanged. The night continues, but you are no longer simply enduring it. You are working within it, using small techniques, quiet habits, and an awareness that grows sharper with each passing moment. These are not dramatic solutions. They are not visible from a distance, but they are effective, and they keep you warm. You settle back again, your body aligned, your cloak secure, your breathing steady. The rhythm continues, sustained by the knowledge that feels both ancient and immediate. You remain calm, prepared, ready for whatever comes next. You remain settled in your carefully chosen place, your body warm enough, your awareness steady. The snow has formed a thin, even layer across the ground, softening the landscape and quieting every sound. The wind has eased, leaving behind a stillness that feels almost protective. After some time, you begin to shift again, not out of discomfort, but out of instinct. Rest has its limits. You open your eyes fully and sit up slowly, allowing your body to adjust to the change. The cold reaches you again, more noticeable now that you're no longer enclosed in that compact resting posture. You draw your cloak tighter, maintaining as much warmth as possible while you move. Your companion does the same. There is no hesitation in the transition. Both of you understand that remaining still for too long invites the cold to return more deeply, when even small becomes necessary again. You look around. The landscape remains quiet, but your attention turns to the materials nearby. The ground is scattered with small branches, patches of dry grass beneath the snow, and a few low shrubs that rise just above the surface. You move toward them, carefully. You brush aside the top layer of snow, revealing what lies beneath. Some of the grass is damp, but not completely unusable. You gather what you can, selecting pieces that feel dry enough to serve a purpose. Not for fire this time, for cover. There are mentions in certain historical reconstructions that travelers sometimes created small temporary coverings using whatever materials were available, even in open landscapes. These were not shelters in the traditional sense, but simple arrangements designed to reduce exposure. You begin to shape one now. You place a few branches into the ground at a slight angle, forming a low structure that leans towards the direction of the wind. It is not tall, not enclosed, but it creates a barrier, however small, against the open air. Your companion adds to it. More branches, more grass. Together you build something modest but functional. A partial shield. You tuck additional grass into the gaps, increasing its density. The materials are uneven, imperfect, but they interrupt the flow of air just enough to matter. When the wind moves again, it no longer reaches you directly. It softens. You feel the difference immediately. A small improvement, but meaningful. There is an interesting detail occasionally noted in studies of survival techniques where even minimal structures, when placed correctly, could reduce heat loss significantly by blocking wind and preserving a pocket of warmer air. You sit behind the barrier. The effect is subtle but clear. The air feels calmer here, less intrusive. Your cloak no longer shifts as frequently, and the warmth you have maintained remains more stable. You adjust your position slightly, aligning yourself fully within this new space. It works. Better than expected. The horse shifts nearby, moving a short distance before settling again. Its position changes slightly in relation to your structure, and you notice how its body now contributes to the barrier, adding another layer of protection from one side. A natural addition. You did not plan it, but it helps. Your companion settles beside you again, both of you positioned within the small area you have created. The space feels more contained now, more defined even without walls or a roof. You breathe slowly. The scent of the grass rises faintly, mixed with the cold air and the lingering trace of wool. It is a simple combination, but it feels grounding, connecting you to the materials that now support your warmth. A quiet satisfaction. Some scholars have explored how improvisation played a key role in medieval travel, suggesting that the ability to use available resources creatively often determined how well a traveller could endure harsh conditions. You see that now, not as theory, but as practice. You adjust a branch, slightly improving its angle, ensuring that it holds its position against the light pressure of the wind. Small corrections like this maintain the structure, keeping it effective over time. You remain attentive, always. The snow continues to fall lightly, settling on the outer side of your barrier. It begins to fill small gaps, adding another layer of insulation. You notice how it reinforces the structure, making it more solid, more resistant to airflow. An unexpected benefit. The environment contributes. If you allow it, you settle deeper into your position, your body now supported by the ground, the cloak, and this simple arrangement of natural materials. The warmth you have preserved feels more secure here, less likely to dissipate quickly. You close your eyes briefly. The space holds. The cold remains outside, present, but less immediate. The wind passes over, redirected by your small structure. The snow continues its quiet work, shaping the environment in subtle ways. You rest again, not fully, but enough. A lesser discussed perspective in historical analysis suggests that adaptability rather than strength was often the defining factor in survival during long journeys. The ability to respond to changing conditions to modify one's approach proved more valuable than any single technique. You embody that, without effort, without resistance. You simply adjust, and in doing so you create a space that supports you, however briefly, within a world that offers no permanent shelter. The night continues, but you have shaped a small part of it, and within that space you remain warm enough, steady enough, ready to continue when the time comes. You remain within the small barrier you have built, your body supported by the ground, your cloak wrapped close, your warmth held steady through careful choices. The snow continues to fall in light drifting patterns, and the wind, though still present, no longer reaches you with the same force. Time passes quietly. You do not measure it. You feel it. After a while, your eyes open again and your awareness sharpens just slightly. The night has not yet begun to fade, but something within you recognizes that rest cannot continue indefinitely. There are still hours ahead, and the cold, though managed, never fully disappears. You shift your position, slowly. Your legs extend for a moment, then draw back in restoring circulation after a period of stillness. Your hands move again beneath your cloak, pressing briefly against your torso, maintaining warmth where it matters most. A steady rhythm, maintained over time. Your companion moves as well, a soft rustle of fabric followed by a quiet repositioning. You both seem to reach the same understanding without speaking. It is time to prepare again, not to leave yet, but to remain ready. Across various interpretations of medieval travel, groups often organized their rest in staggered intervals, ensuring that at least one person remained more alert while others rested. This was not always formal, but it emerged naturally from shared experience and necessity. You begin to notice that pattern here. Your companion's posture shifts into a more upright position, their movements slightly more active. Meanwhile, you remain partially at rest, allowing your body to conserve energy while still maintaining awareness. A quiet exchange of roles, unspoken. You listen. The night remains calm, the snow continuing to fall in soft, consistent layers. The sound is almost absent, a gentle hush that absorbs what little noise exists. Yet within that silence you remain attentive, aware of subtle changes. A faint movement in the distance, a shift in the wind, the quiet presence of the horse. You remain balanced, resting and watching. There is an interesting observation found in some lesser-known travel accounts, where individuals described a natural rotation of attention during group journeys. Without planning, people would alternate between deeper rest and heightened awareness, maintaining a form of shared vigilance. You feel that now, not as a task, but as a flow. Your breathing remains slow, your body relaxed, yet your senses remain open. You do not need to sit fully upright to remain aware. Your awareness exists independently, shaped by the environment and your adaptation to it. You adjust your cloak again. The fabric shifts slightly, settling more securely around your shoulders. You tuck one edge beneath your arm, reinforcing the enclosure you have created. Each movement is small, controlled, preserving the warmth you have built. Nothing wasted, nothing rushed. The horse shifts again, stamping lightly before settling once more. Its presence remains steady, its awareness constant. You notice how it never fully rests in the same way you do, always maintaining a subtle readiness. You learn from that. Even in stillness there is movement. Even in rest there is awareness. Some scholars continue to explore how both humans and animals contributed to shared survival during travel, particularly in harsh conditions. The combination of human adaptation and animal instinct created a system that was both flexible and resilient. You see that system now. You are part of it. Your companion adjusts their position again, turning slightly toward the open side of your barrier. Their posture suggests a more active role, observing the surroundings, while you maintain your partial rest. A quiet understanding. It does not need to be discussed. You shift slightly in response, settling more deeply for a moment, allowing your body to recover a little more fully while the balance is maintained. A gentle exchange. Over time you'll reverse it, without needing to decide. A lesser explored idea in historical analysis suggests that endurance during long journeys was often less about constant effort and more about managing cycles of energy, allowing the body to recover in small increments rather than pushing continuously. You feel that pattern forming. It makes sense. Your body responds to it naturally. You close your eyes briefly again, not fully withdrawing from the environment, but softening your focus, allowing your muscles to relax just a little more. The warmth within your cloak remains steady, supported by your position and the barrier around you. You remain aware. The sounds continue. The snow, the wind, the quiet presence beside you. Everything remains as it should. You open your eyes again after a short while, sensing the shift in your own readiness. The rest has helped. Not completely, but enough to restore balance, enough to prepare for what comes next. Your companion notices. They shift slightly, easing their posture, allowing the shared rhythm to adjust once more. You return to a more active state, gradually, without urgency. The barrier still holds, the cloak still protects. The small systems you have built continue to function together, each part supporting the others. You're not simply enduring the night now. You are managing it, moment by moment, with quiet precision. And as the hours continue, you begin to understand that survival here is not defined by a single action, but by a series of small continuous choices, each one reinforcing the next. You remain steady, prepared, and ready to move again when the time comes. You remain within this quiet shelter. You've shaped your body, steady your awareness for balance between rest and readiness. The snow has settled more thickly now, covering the ground in a soft, pale layer that reflects what little light the sky provides. The air feels colder again, though not sharply so. Then you notice something else. Dampness. Not sudden, not overwhelming, but present. You shift slightly, pressing your hand against the ground beneath your layer of grass and branches. The surface still feels firm, but there is a subtle coolness that reaches through the barrier. A faint trace of moisture that has begun to gather as the snow melts and refreezes in uneven patterns. You recognize the risk immediately. Cold alone is manageable. Wet cold is not. Across various interpretations of historical travel conditions, dampness is often described as one of the most dangerous elements to contend with. Moisture draws heat away from the body far more quickly than dry air, making even mild conditions feel significantly harsher. You respond without delay. Slowly, carefully, you shift your position, lifting your body just enough to adjust the materials beneath you. You add more dry grass where you can find it, layering it more thickly between yourself and the ground. A small improvement, but necessary. Your companion mirrors the action, brushing away a thin patch of snow and reinforcing their own layer. The movements are quiet, deliberate, guided by the same understanding. Keep dry, stay warm. The horse shifts again, moving slightly to a higher patch of ground where the snow has not yet begun to soften. Its instinct guides it toward a drier position, avoiding areas where moisture might gather. You notice that, and follow. You adjust your position once more, moving just enough to align yourself with a slightly elevated section of earth. The difference is subtle, but the ground feels firmer here, less prone to holding moisture. It helps. A small advantage. There is an interesting detail occasionally referenced in environmental studies where even slight changes in elevation could influence how water and snow accumulated. Travelers who recognize these differences could reduce their exposure to damp conditions significantly. You understand that now, through sensation, through experience. You pull your cloak tighter again, ensuring that it remains as dry as possible. The outer layer resists the snow well, but you are careful to brush away any build-up before it can melt into the fabric. Moisture held too long could become a problem. You stay attentive. Always. A faint chill reaches your side where the cloak had shifted slightly. You correct it quickly, sealing the opening, restoring the warmth within. Each small adjustment preserves the balance you have worked to maintain. Nothing is ignored. Everything matters. Your companion adjusts their cloak as well, their movements echoing your own. The shared awareness continues, each of you responding to the same conditions, maintaining your own warmth, while contributing to the overall stability of the space. The barrier still stands. The materials you gathered continue to serve their purpose, blocking the wind and helping to preserve a pocket of warmer air. The snow that has settled against it now adds a thin layer of insulation reinforcing its effect. An unexpected If managed carefully, some scholars suggest that while snow can create damp conditions, it can also be used strategically to insulate as long as direct moisture is avoided. The key lies in maintaining separation between the body and the wet surface. You maintain that separation with care. You shift your legs again, ensuring that circulation continues, that no part of your body remains in prolonged contact with a potentially damp surface. The movements are small, but they prevent the cold from settling too deeply. A steady rhythm, maintained without effort. The horse exhales again, its breath rising in soft clouds. It stamps lightly, then shifts its position once more, always seeking the most stable dry ground available. Its behavior remains calm but purposeful. You observe it closely, learning. Still, a lesser-known observation in historical discussions suggests that animals often provided subtle guidance to travellers, not through direct interaction, but through their choices of movement and rest. You follow that pattern now, not blindly, but thoughtfully. You adjust your posture once more, ensuring that your body remains elevated just enough that your cloak continues to protect you, that the ground beneath you does not draw away your warmth. You refine your position, improving it. The cold remains, but it does not overwhelm. Your body continues to generate heat supported by the food you consumed earlier, preserved by the layers you wear, maintained by the careful decisions you make. It is a system, working together. You breathe slowly. The air remains sharp, but your body accepts it, adapts to it, works within it. Each breath is part of the process, part of the quiet effort that keeps you balanced. You remain calm. That matters more than anything. Some interpretations of historical endurance suggest that those who remained composed, who responded steadily rather than reactively, were better able to manage the challenges of cold travel. You embody that. Embody that now. Without effort, without force, you simply adjust, and in doing so you prevent the dampness from becoming a greater threat, maintaining your warmth, preserving your energy, and preparing yourself for the continuation of the journey. The night continues, the snow settles, the ground shifts beneath it, and you remain dry enough, warm enough, aware enough to endure what remains. You remain settled within your small, carefully managed space, your cloak secured, your body positioned to avoid the dampness that slowly gathers beneath the snow. The barrier still holds the ground, remains firm enough, and the cold though constant feels contained. For a while everything stays steady, then your attention shifts again, not outward this time, but toward the fire, what remains of it. You turn slightly, looking back toward the faint glow that lingers behind you. The embers are still there, dim but alive, pulsing gently in the darkness. They are not enough to warm you from this distance anymore, but they carry something else. Potential. You consider it, carefully. In many historical accounts, travellers understood that a fire was not something to be used once and forgotten. It required attention even in its weakest state. Embers, if preserved, could be revived, saving time and effort compared to starting a new flame from nothing. You shift your position. Slowly, your body rises just enough to move toward the remains of the fire, your steps controlled, conserving energy. The snow crunches softly beneath your feet, the sound muted but present. You kneel beside the embers. They glow faintly, small points of heat beneath a layer of ash. You extend your hand cautiously, feeling the warmth that still radiates from them. It is weak, but not gone. You gather a few small pieces of dry material, the kind you prepared earlier. Thin twigs, fragments of grass that remain protected from moisture. You place them carefully over the embers, not too quickly, allowing space for air to move through. You breathe gently, a soft exhale. The embers respond. The glow deepens slightly, spreading into the new material. A faint crackle follows, almost inaudible at first. You continue patient, controlled, feeding the fire slowly rather than overwhelming it. A careful process. You have learned this already. There is an often overlooked detail in historical survival practices where tending embers was considered as important as building a fire itself. Maintaining a small, continuous heat source required less effort than repeatedly starting from nothing. You see the truth in that. The flame returns, not large, not bright, but steady. You watch it grow just enough to be useful, its light flickering softly against the snow, casting faint shadows that move gently with each shift of air. The warmth begins to spread again, reaching outward in small waves. You extend your hands toward it. The sensation returns, gradual, familiar. You do not rush. Too much heat too quickly can be uncomfortable, even harmful, especially after a period of cold. You allow your body to adjust, letting the warmth build, slowly restoring circulation without overwhelming your senses. Your companion moves closer as well. They settle near the fire, mirroring your position, their hands extending towards the flame. The shared space forms again, this time centered around the renewed source of warmth. A quiet gathering. The horse remains where it is, but you notice how it has shifted slightly, positioning itself where it can still feel the warmth even from a distance. Its awareness remains constant, its movements minimal but purposeful. You continue tending the fire, adding small pieces of fuel, maintaining its balance. You do not aim for size. You aim for consistency. Some scholars suggest that small controlled fires were often preferred during travel, especially in open conditions. They required less fuel, produced manageable heat, and were easier to maintain over time. You follow that principle naturally. The flame stabilizes. Its warmth reaches you more clearly now, combining with the insulation of your cloak and the barrier you built earlier. Together they create a layered system of protection, each part supporting the others. You feel the difference. Your fingers relax further. Your shoulders ease. The tension that had quietly built during the colder moments begins to fade, replaced by a more stable sense of comfort. A small recovery, but meaningful. You adjust your position, slightly turning one side of your body toward the fire, then the other, ensuring that the warmth reaches you evenly. This slow rotation prevents any single area from becoming too cold while another becomes too warm. A steady method, repeated with care. There is a curious detail sometimes mentioned in historical observations, where travelers would use the heat of a fire not only for immediate warmth, but to prepare for the next period of a By warming their bodies gradually, they could extend their endurance once they moved away again. You understand that now. This is preparation, not just relief. You pick up a small stone from near the fire and place it closer to the flame. Over time, it will absorb heat, becoming a secondary source of warmth even after the fire diminishes again. A simple technique. Effective. The fire continues to burn, its light steady, its warmth consistent. You remain attentive, adding fuel when needed, ensuring that it does not fade too quickly, but also that it does not grow beyond what you can manage. Balance remains the key. Your companion watches the flame as well. Their presence calm their movements, occasional but precise. The two of you maintain the fire together without needing to speak, each action supporting the other. The night continues. But this small circle of warmth grows stronger. You settle back slightly, allowing the fire to do its work while you conserve energy. Your cloak holds the heat, your body maintains it, and the environment shaped by your earlier effort supports it. You remain in control, as much as possible. And as the embers become flame once more, you begin to feel how even the smallest spark, when carefully tended, can sustain you through the cold. You sit there, hands warm, body steady, mind calm. The road still waits. But for now, the fire lives again. You remain beside the small revived fire, your hands extended toward its gentle warmth, your body slowly restoring what the cold has taken. The flame burns steadily, never rising too high, never fading completely. And in its quiet persistence, you feel a deeper shift beginning within you. Not just comfort, endurance. Your body has changed over these hours. At first, every sensation of cold demanded your attention. Each gust of wind felt sharp and immediate. Now the same air moves across you with less urgency. It is still cold, but your response to it has softened. You have adapted. A commonly recognized idea in studies of human endurance is that the body, when exposed to sustained cold, gradually adjusts its responses. Circulation patterns shift. Breathing stabilizes. The mind learns to interpret sensation differently, reducing the sense of distress. You feel that clearly now. The cold no longer feels like something pressing against you. It feels like something around you. You shift your hands slightly, turning them away from the fire for a moment, testing the air. The difference is noticeable, but not overwhelming. You return them to the warmth, allowing the heat to spread again, reinforcing what your body has already begun to maintain. A quiet confirmation. You are stronger than before. Your companion remains close, their posture relaxed, their movements minimal. The shared space around the fire feels stable, each of you benefiting from the same source of warmth, yet maintaining your own balance within it. The horse stands nearby, its presence unchanged, its breath rising in soft, steady patterns. It seems unaffected by the shifting conditions, moving only when necessary, conserving energy in a way that feels deeply efficient. You watch it briefly. There is something to learn there. A lesser explored idea in historical analysis suggests that animals, through their natural efficiency, may have influenced how humans approached endurance during travel. Observing their patterns could offer quiet guidance, even without conscious understanding. You find yourself adopting a similar stillness. Not rigid, but composed. You sit with your back slightly curved, your shoulders relaxed, your breathing even. Each movement you make is measured, conserving energy while maintaining warmth. You no longer feel the need to adjust constantly. You adjust only when necessary. This is different. A faint warmth continues to build within your core, supported by the food you consumed earlier, sustained by the fire preserved by your clothing. It creates a stable center from which everything else follows. You feel grounded, more than before. Some historians continue to examine how prolonged exposure to cold environments shaped not only physical responses, but mental ones as well. A calm, focused mindset often emerged, reducing panic and allowing for clearer decision-making. You recognize that state within yourself. There is no urgency, no anxiety, only steady awareness. You shift slightly, extending one leg, then drawing it back in, maintaining circulation without disrupting your balance. The movement is small, but it keeps your body engaged, preventing stiffness from returning. A simple cycle, repeated when needed. The fire crackles softly, its sound now more noticeable in the quiet night. The scent of smoke rises again, mixing with the cold air, creating a familiar, almost comforting atmosphere. You inhale slowly, the warmth, the scent, the stillness. They settle into you. There is an interesting detail sometimes noted in historical observations where travelers described a moment during long journeys when the struggle against the environment seemed to ease, replaced by a sense of rhythm and acceptance. You have reached that moment. The cold is still present, but it no longer defines the experience. You lean slightly closer to the fire, then ease back again, maintaining a balance between warmth and distance. Too close and the heat becomes uneven. Too far and it fades too quickly. You find the right place. Without thinking, your companion mirrors this as well, their movements aligned with yours in quiet harmony. The two of you exist within the same rhythm now, shaped by the same conditions, responding in similar ways. A shared endurance, unspoken. The horse shifts again, stamping lightly before settling once more. Its movements remain minimal. Its energy conserved, its presence steady. It has found its own balance just as you have found yours. You sit there for a while longer, not counting time, not measuring progress, simply existing within the moment, allowing your body to maintain its warmth, your mind to remain calm, your awareness to stay present. A quiet strength. Some scholars continue to debate how much of this endurance was conscious versus instinctive, whether travelers understood these processes in detail or simply followed patterns that had been reinforced over time. You do not need to answer that. You simply experience it. The fire continues to burn, its light steady, its warmth consistent. The snow remains, the wind quiet, the night unchanged in its vastness. Yet you are different, more prepared, more capable. You draw your cloak slightly closer once more, not out of need, but out of habit, reinforcing the warmth you have built. The fabric responds as it always has, holding the heat, protecting you from the cold. You remain steady, ready. The road still lies ahead, but you no longer feel uncertain about it. You understand now how to move through this environment, how to manage its challenges, how to preserve what you need to continue. You have learned, through action, through stillness, through quiet endurance, and as the fire burns beside you, you begin to feel that you can carry this warmth forward, not just in your body, but in your understanding of what it means to endure the cold. You remain beside the steady fire, your body warm enough, and your mind calm. Your awareness has settled into a quiet rhythm that feels both natural and sustained. The night stretches on, but it no longer feels endless. It feels structured, divided into moments that you can manage one at a time. The flame moves gently, the snow rests, the air holds still, and within that stillness something subtle begins to change. Not in the cold, not in the ground, but in the way you experience the time between each breath. You notice your companions shift slightly, their posture relaxing just a little more, as if the steady warmth has allowed them to release some of the quiet tension held through the earlier hours. They do not speak, neither do you. Yet the shared space feels more open now, less guarded. There is room for something else. A soft sound emerges, a voice, low, measured, almost blending into the crackle of the fire. Your companion begins to speak not loudly, not with urgency, but in a calm, steady tone that feels shaped by the same rhythm you have both found. The words are simple, carried more by cadence than by meaning, and you listen without needing to respond. The sound fills the space, gently. In several interpretations of medieval travel culture, storytelling appears as a quiet but persistent presence during long journeys. Not always elaborate, not always formal, but often used to pass time, ease tension, and maintain a sense of connection between travellers. You begin to understand why. The voice continues. It speaks of roads, of distant places, of moments that may or may not be entirely real, or the details are not important. What matters is the flow, the steady pattern of sound that holds your attention without demanding it. You listen. Your breathing slows even further, matching the pace of the voice. The fire crackles softly beneath it, adding a subtle rhythm, a quiet accompaniment that blends with the sound of speech, a layered stillness. There is a curious detail sometimes mentioned in historical observations where repeated storytelling along travel routes led to shared narratives that evolved over time. Stories change slightly with each telling, shaped by the memory environment and the needs of the moment. You hear that now, in the tone, in the pauses, in the way certain words linger longer than others. The story is not fixed. It moves, just as you do. You feel your body respond, not with movement, but with ease. The tension in your shoulders softens. Your hands rest more naturally within your cloak. The warmth you have built no longer feels fragile. It feels sustained, supported not only by physical means, but by the calm that now surrounds you. A different kind of comfort. Some scholars have suggested that the presence of quiet conversation or storytelling may have helped regulate breathing and heart rate during periods of rest, contributing indirectly to the preservation of warmth and energy. You sense that effect. Your breath aligns with the rhythm of the voice. Slow even, stable. The horse shifts slightly, its presence still steady, still calm. It does not react to the sound. It accepts it as part of the environment just as it has accepted everything else. You remain where you are, listening. The story continues, then pauses, then resumes again, as if shaped by the natural flow of thought rather than a fixed beginning or end. There is no need for structure here, only continuity. You feel your awareness soften, not fading, but expanding. The cold remains, but it feels distant now, held at the edges of your experience rather than at its centre. The fire, the cloak, the barrier all continue to function as before, but something else has joined them. A sense of ease. A lesser-known perspective in historical analysis suggests that emotional states during travel could influence physical endurance more than expected. Calmness, familiarity, and shared presence could reduce the perceived intensity of hardship. You understand that now, not as an idea, but as a feeling. The voice gradually fades, not ending, but slowing, becoming less frequent, more spaced between breaths. The silence that follows does not feel empty, it feels complete. You remain still. The fire continues its gentle rhythm. The snow remains settled. The night holds its quiet form. Everything continues, but with less effort. You adjust your cloak slightly, not out of necessity, but out of habit, maintaining the balance you have created. The warmth remains stable. Your body continues its quiet work. Your awareness remains calm. You are ready, not in a hurried sense, but in a steady one. The road still lies ahead, and soon you will rise again, leaving this small circle of warmth behind. but you carry something with you now that you did not have before. Understanding, not just of the cold, but of how to move within it. You sit for a moment longer, letting the silence settle fully, letting the warmth hold, letting your body remain at ease. Then slowly you prepare to continue. You remain seated for a final quiet moment, the small fire still breathing softly beside you, your cloak holding its steady warmth, your body calm and prepared. The night has carried you through its deepest hours, and now, almost imperceptibly, something begins to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently. You notice it first in the sky. A subtle thinning of the darkness, as if the blackness above is becoming slightly less complete. The stars remain, but they seem to fade just a little, their brightness softened by a distant growing light that has not yet reached the ground. Dawn is approaching. You do not rise immediately. There is no need to hurry. Instead, you sit with the moment, allowing your body to recognize the shift, to understand that the long stretch of night is slowly giving way to something new. The cold remains, but it feels different now, less dominant, as if it too senses the change. You breathe slowly. The air still carries its chill, but there is a softness within it, a quiet promise that warmth will return, even if only gradually. You draw your cloak closer once more, preserving what you have built even as the need for it begins to ease. A gentle transition. In many reconstructions of medieval travel, the first light of dawn often marked the natural point of movement when travellers would rise and continue their journey. The return of light did not immediately bring warmth, but it brought clarity, direction, and a renewed sense of purpose. You begin to feel that, not as urgency, but as readiness. Your companion shifts beside you, their movements slow, deliberate, as they too become aware of the change. The quiet understanding remains between you, unspoken but shared. It is time to prepare. The horse lifts its head. Its posture changes, slightly more alert, now more responsive to the subtle shift in the environment. Its breath continues in soft clouds, but its stance suggests movement will soon follow. Everything is aligning. You reach toward the fire and begin to gather what remains. The embers are still warm, but their purpose here is complete. You scatter them carefully, ensuring that no flame remains unattended, leaving the space as it was found. A simple act, but important. There is a commonly acknowledged principle in historical travel practices that fires once used were often extinguished or dispersed to prevent unintended spread, especially in dry or vulnerable landscapes. You follow that instinct naturally. The ground settles again. The small circle of warmth begins to fade. You rise slowly. Your body responds with the familiar stiffness, the result of long hours and careful stillness, but it eases quickly as you begin to move. You stretch slightly, your muscles waking, your circulation increasing. Warmth returns through motion. You adjust your cloak, ensuring it is secure for travel, then check your surroundings one last time. The barrier you built remains now partially covered in snow, its purpose fulfilled. The ground holds its quiet shape, the marks of your presence already softening. Nothing permanent, only temporary. A lesser-known observation in historical discussions is that many traces of travel disappeared quickly, especially in changing weather conditions. Snow, wind, and time would erase signs of passage, leaving the landscape seemingly untouched. You see that now. Your time here is already fading. You take a step forward, then another. The road reappears beneath your feet, faint but recognizable, its path clearer now as the light slowly increases. The sky shifts from deep darkness to a softer shade, the first hint of color barely visible at the horizon. You continue walking. Your companion moves beside you once more, the shared rhythm returning without effort. The horse follows its steps, steady, its presence constant. The small group reforms, naturally ready to continue the journey. The cold remains, but it no longer feels overwhelming. It feels manageable. You have learned how to move within it, how to preserve warmth, how to adapt to changing conditions. Each technique, each small adjustment has contributed to this understanding. You carry it with you now, not as knowledge you must recall, but as something you feel. You walk steadily, your breath, even your body warm enough. Your mind calm. The landscape begins to reveal itself in soft outline shapes emerging from the fading darkness. The night releases its hold. Slowly, gently, you glance upward once more, watching as the last of the stars fade into the growing light. The sky opens, the horizon brightens, and with it a quiet sense of relief settles within you. You made it through, not by force, but by balance, by listening, by adapting. And now, as the first light touches the world around you, you feel a calm satisfaction, not loud or dramatic, but steady and lasting. You continue forward. The road stretches ahead, and you are ready for it. You walk on your steps quiet, your body steady, your breath slow and even. The cold air softens with each passing moment, and the landscape gradually awakens around you, though still wrapped in the calm hush of early morning. There is no need to rush now. The urgency of the night has passed. In its place, a gentler rhythm emerges, one that allows your body to ease your mind, to settle your awareness, to widen beyond the immediate need for warmth. You feel the difference clearly, a gradual release of tension that had quietly shaped every movement through the darkness. You continue at a steady pace, your cloak still wrapped close, though not as tightly as before. The air moves more gently now, and your body, having endured the long hours, maintains its warmth with less effort. You notice the ground more clearly. The thin layer of snow reflects the growing light, giving shape to the road, to the surrounding land, to the path that lies ahead. It feels easier to follow now, less uncertain, more defined. You breathe in slowly. The air feels different, still cool, but lighter. There is a sense of renewal in it, a quiet shift that signals the transition from endurance to continuation. You carry the memory of the night with you, not as something heavy, but as something steady, a quiet understanding of how you endured, how each small action contributed, how each moment of awareness helped you remain balanced through the cold. It stays with you, in your movement, in your breath, in the way you now walk forward with calm certainty. The road continues, but you are no longer uncertain within it. You have found your rhythm, and in that rhythm you continue, calmly, steadily, at ease. Sleep well,